Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here today. There are a couple of things that I'd like to discuss today. The first is we're rapidly approaching the completion of the long-awaited Valencia Road East project that goes from Wilmot through the Kolb intersection. There's a good shot of it there on the screen. It turned out to be quite a lot more of a project than we originally anticipated when we went out to the RTA election back in 2006. It turned out that when we started looking at the amount of turning movements that we had to deal with it on that intersection, it really demanded a much more comprehensive project than was originally contemplated. So we've been working on this particular project now probably since 2010. It's been under construction for almost a year now, and I'm pleased to tell you that it's nearly complete. We are scheduling the ribbon cutting for the project on August 15th, 9 a.m. at the southwest corner of the intersection of Kolb and Valencia. And this project has gone very rapidly. It is typically something, in the project of this scale, we generally look at 20 to 24 months is the typical amount of time that it takes to build a project of this nature. We deliberately looked at ways that we could expedite it because we knew of how congested that particular intersection was. I know coming over to the meeting this afternoon, I noted that there was, first of all, almost no delay at the intersection. In fact, there was nobody queuing up for the left turns. They all made it through on the turn of the light, which is quite a relief. And the other thing that I noted was that we still have a lot of activity out there, a lot of construction. There's landscaping, there's erosion control work that's going on the side of the road. I know everybody is feeling liberated by having these, new lanes that are all nice and smooth. Please do be mindful of the speed limits that still exist out there. We do have people still working out there. They're at risk, so please consider the workers out there along the road. A couple of other shots that you've seen, overhead shots of the intersection provided to me by the City of Tucson. City of Tucson, by the way, although the RTA was involved with Pima County in the design of this particular project, the City of Tucson actually annexed in the area, and they were kind enough to take on the delivery of the project for us. So they did a great job on that. The last thing I wanted to tell, or the other thing I wanted to talk to you about was the RTA continuation plan. Back in 2006, we brought before the voters of Pima County a 20-year plan. It included many of the projects that you've heard about this evening, certainly the Valencia Road project. The Houghton Road project is funded substantially with RTA funds. Even I think there was mention of the Wilmot project, a couple of phases of that, the phase that connected Rita Road to where the road ended by the prisons. That was an RTA project, and I believe Jim mentioned that he's now going into design on the intersection of Rita Road and Wilmot, which really needs some attention. Get a signal in on there. That was also RTA funded. And what we're now doing, we're now 2019. We've been in business. We've been operating now for 13, 14 years. We're at the point where it's time to start talking about renewal of it. And if you could bring that slide back up again, I'd appreciate it. This is the process that we've embarked on. We refer to it as the wheel. It's basically the steps that we're going through in terms of preparing the continuation plan for consideration by voters in Pima County. We need to bring it back before the current authorization ends, which would be in 2026. But right now, it seems to us like it might make sense for us to look at bringing it back to the voters sooner than that, so they have an opportunity to address some evolving needs on some of the projects. We established a 35-member citizens committee that happened last year, and they've been meeting on a quarterly basis. We're right now at the point where we're starting to transition in and really start stepping up the process. And I'd encourage everybody to get engaged in it. The Citizens Committee right now is in step 2, or completing step 2, where it's established plan priorities. They adopted at their July 8th meeting a draft regional framework for the RTA plan. That is going to be going out to the jurisdictions, the cities, towns, and county, to get their input on it. The RTA board also took action at their May meeting and basically called or set a date for the jurisdictions to submit their proposals. These proposals take a lot of work to develop. We'll have to have comprehensive scopes and cost estimates. And there's a process within the cities and towns and the county of really kind of vetting their priorities. And so we'll want to see their prioritized list from all of the jurisdictions, and they are due to the RTA on June 1st of 2020. So we've got less than a year to develop these projects. I think it's a great opportunity for the members of the public to begin tracking this, getting involved, let their jurisdictions know what their project priorities are. I'd also encourage folks to, if they want to track what's going on, they can go onto our website and follow the process. Our website is rtamobility.com. And you can also, for those tech-savvy folks, we can send you text or updates, notifications. If you text to 22828, the name or in the message field put in RTA News, you'll be added to our text list. So that is really the material I wanted to present this evening, and I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Can we bring the slide back up, please? So if I'm reading this slide correctly, then this right now is proposal for the 2026 next RTA Outlook when approved.
What we have right now is a plan that runs through 2026. Okay. We have the ability to go back at any time between now and 2026, or even after 2026, to the voters and ask for a continuation. We would have to bring before the voters a very specific list of projects, their prices, or the amount of money that we would fund to those projects, and when they would begin, or when the timetable for implementation of those projects. Those are our obligations under the law to put into the plan. Then it'd be up to the voters to decide whether they would support that plan.
So what is your definition of the regions?
Well, the RTA is for Pima County, so it includes all of the unincorporated area within Pima County and the cities and towns and tribes.
Okay. So reason I'm bringing this up is because there's been a large push for the citizens of Corona de Tucson to widen Houghton Road, even though from where it is ending at the high school with that proposed project, to continue the widening down to Sarjeta Road. What would entail to get that done or on the RTA radar?
You know, it is not in the current RTA plan. It would be something that I would encourage you to advocate for putting into the continuation plan.
Who's the point of contact for advocation?
Pardon me?
Who would be the point of contact for advocation?
It would come through through your local government, so it would be, in this case, Pima County.
Okay, so we would have to basically go back to the Steve Christie's office and say, we want this advocated for our region.
DOT would be submitting to us, and it's not a staff function to decide which projects are in and out. This is what the 35-member Citizens Committee is for, is vetting the projects and weighing their recommendations and making that recommendation to the RTA board, who would be the body that would vote on what goes into the plan, and that would then be brought to the voters.
That would be for the 2026 plan or the pre-2026 plan?
It would be for any plan that would come. We don't have a date yet. It's going to be up to the RTA board to decide when they want to bring the plan before the voters. That's something that they've not yet made the decision on. They have a lot of options. What they're going to be looking for is the input from the and the recommendation from the Citizens Committee on when to bring it forward as well.
Okay, so any plans established by our region would have to go before the Citizens Review Board, and then it would go before the RTA, such as the wheel showed itself.
The Citizens Advisory Committee would make a recommendation to the RTA board. The RTA board could take it, or they could amend it. So there is still that opportunity.
All right. So at this time, we still have the opportunity to get it on some form of radar to get it before RTA.
Yeah, actually, I expect it to be be considered. I know that when the 2006 plan was developed, there was actually a consideration to extend Houghton down to Dawn. So that was on that we actually went through the process of developing cost estimates for it. It's just during the process of deciding, which projects were funded, that particular project didn't make the list. That's not to say that it wouldn't score very highly in the next round.
Okay.
I was one individual that served on the original Citizens Advisory Committee back in 2005, 2006, and kind of a complicated issue that's being made here, and it's really quite simple. What we need to do is to provide a list to this group of the Citizens Advisory Committee names, and hopefully someone will be recognized that lives in this area. I don't know who's on it at this particular point, but I know it's available. And what needs to be done is that person or persons that lives in this area should be informed of the desires of what the community wants specifically on this Houghton Road issue that you just raised. So it's the Citizens Advisory Committee that is the advocacy group to the RTA. And it's a very effective way to present the desires and needs of a community. So I would encourage that we disseminate the Citizens Advisory Committee membership list, find someone who will serve as an advocate for this group before the RTA board, and if you keep at it and keep at it and keep at it, it gets in there. So that's the easiest way to do it.
Follow up with is that the that June 1st submittal date in 2020 is just the beginning of the public discussion on what goes into the plan. The CAC members will make the recommendation, but we will be hearing from the public as the plan is being developed.
So South Houghton is kind of a mess. I drive it every day. It is an absolute show, to say the least. And the growth that's coming from that area, along with everything else to be considered, yes. I also am laughing at the fact that I'm thinking to myself, here I drive that cold corridor and I make a right and I head down past, which is great. The new development or the new roads down there are fantastic. They were well thought out. It was definitely planned out for future growth within the industrial revolution, so to speak, happening on that corridor with Amazon sitting right there. What I am a little suspicious about as a citizen who drives that on a regular basis, and the buses that we bus children in and out of that corridor now to the school district, and along with La Estancia, which is right across from the Amazon corridor, all of that beautiful work that we've done funnels to two roads past the tech park and to the intersection of I-10. Now, from personal experience in Phoenix, where Amazon has several buildings along a corridor that feed to the I-10, that was a sore spot because it was one of those things during Christmas time when Amazon is at its peak. And not to say that we don't have Target Distribution Center, the very intersection north, the I-10 exit with Rita, that needs to be considered where that intersection is going to be a nightmare, which it already has been before this is all, but during just a certain season alone, I can tell you right now that the trucks, just the in and outs of that corridor to the north, not so much the south, but to the north side are going to be, and this is more maybe for taking it to the state and going, hey, If we remember what happened in Phoenix with that I-10 corridor drop when they bought all those buildings at the same time, and then all of a sudden they were feeding trucks in and out, it became a very sore spot where they had to use the frontage roads in a very unique way. I hope we don't get to that point, because that is a 2-lane nightmare waiting to happen. And I'm not saying anything to take away from my corridor down to Corona de Tucson, because that is also a nightmare that is, I'm living every day. But I'm also one that most Corona de Tucson people can't use Houghton to this point, and won't for probably many years, as we are growing and it is under construction. So it used to be we'd cut to Kolb north into the east side of the city, and we would do our shopping and all that stuff and head back down Kolb. It is something to be considered, because that whole corridor now feeds off of Rita. Doesn't go anywhere. It goes right into Rita Ranch, which doesn't help us out. But it's the Kolb that we all take northbound into the city. And now that Wilmot has been paved all the way up to the I-10 and drops to the Kolb corridor and north, it scares me a lot, because I have a future 16-year-old that is, if she's anything like her mother, is going to be not a very good driver. And I'm already prepared for it, because insurance on my wife is... Anyway, that's a personal thing. I won't get into that. Anyway, so I'm just saying, as I know there's lots of young drivers, there's lots of other drivers out there too. That's a corridor to be considered as to what's about to happen as that becomes like that facility, almost 1 million square feet, comes online 24 hours a day. They're not going to have all those trucks coming in at night. They're going to be coming in 24/7. So just considering, maybe you have something for us.
Thank you. That's not lost on us at all, and I think that's another project that would probably be fielded as we're considering a new list of projects.
One last concept. When RTA goes forward to renewal in the 2026 timeframe, is there any concept on road improvement, or besides the road improvements, but road maintenance? Is RTA going to give that consideration to a subset of its charter?
I think the short answer to that is that is definitely something that we need to look at. Whether or not it's something we choose to include in the plan is something that needs to be discussed. And I know it's something that people, our electeds, feel very passionately about, some pro, some con. So it's going to be a big thing to discuss. And one thing you mentioned the 2026 date. That's when the current plan expires. That does not necessarily correlate to when we'll be going back to the voters. In fact, I would expect it to come back sooner than that.
And the reason I asked that is because mostly what we've seen with some of the bond measures and everything, people have kind of put it down. RTA has been successful. And I think that if the road maintenance comes down from that line, people may buy into it.
So we appreciate that comment, and I hope that that you and other citizens come up and speak to that issue when the time's right for it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. So thank you again, Jim.